All right, so I surprised you guys. I know we typically have one guest coach per month, but I wanted to bring in another one, especially before the new year, because a big thing that I wanted to kind of share with you guys before the new year. A lot of our calls, yes, there's motivation because we always bring in guest speakers, but a lot of them are real tactical stuff. This one is going to be heavy motivation, but also tactical stuff too. Because going into the new year, guys, there's going to be just like everything else. You can get the information, you can have the community, but if you don't execute, nothing happens, right? I think we all know that. You guys know I pound this every single week with you guys. It's about, listen, you have the community. You got 120 business owners in here or salespeople. We give you guys tactics. We got the blueprint. You got the training. But if you do not execute, nothing happens. What stops people from executing? Well, it all starts with the mind, right? Now, how can I help you break through what your mind can kind of have you fall back into do, which then makes you not execute? Have brain hacks, have things for you to think about when this time comes, when you know you got to execute something and you don't feel like doing it. You know what? Devin had Brad on and he told me about this situation. And now I have that bottled up as my mental medicine, which I always tell you guys to use to take when these times come up and happen. So we can get you guys executing when, a lot of times you don't feel like it. So there's going to be a lot of perspective that's going to come out of this call, a lot of stories that after this call you're going to think about, and it's probably going to make you execute on times where you don't feel like doing it because you're going to remember the shit that's going to be on this call today. So for the most part, guys, as far as the guest speaker, it's a friend of mine, Brad, what's it, Modrich? Is that how you say your last name?
Modrich, yep, that's right.
Modrich, right? So I shared this before, guys. I'm also a part of a entrepreneurial community. It's probably one of the best ones that's ever existed called Arete Syndicate. A lot of you guys know because I share a lot of their messages, Andy Frisil and Ed Milet. They run this whole community. It's nationwide. I mean, now I think it's global. There's actually a few of you that are actually in it. Now, this is a community that's probably up to 2,000 members right now, right? And these are very high-level people all across the nation. Now, as you can imagine, it's probably difficult, right, to get the attention of Ed Milet and Andy Frisilla in a community with 2,000 people that are national business owners that are all high performers, right? So what type of individual is so good and creates such an impact and such an influence that gets that recognition? Well, we have Brad on this call right now that had that recognition from two individuals that in the very near future are going to be worth billions of dollars, right? So that right there should make you be locked in. Remember, guys, the housekeeping rules, don't be multitasking. Not many people can, same thing every time. These guest speakers that I bring into, guys, not many people have the opportunity to talk to and learn from these caliber people. So take it seriously. I know sometimes we can take it for granted because we just do this shit every month. But for the most part, I want you guys locked in, and this is what we're going to get out of it. One, Brad's going to go over how to actually use a community the right way at the absolute highest level possible, right? And that's very important for you guys heading into the new year. So you don't, have some of the excuses like some of these people, oh, I can't make the calls, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. So no, you're not committed to it. You don't know how to use it, and it's your fault. You can't blame anybody else. I don't want that to happen to any of you guys. So he's going to coach on how to get the most out of these communities, how to be an influence, how to add value and all that good stuff. And then most importantly, guys, he has an unbelievable life story that when he goes through this, I want you to remember. And then you're going to bottle all this stuff up to where when there's times when you start feeling sorry for yourself in the new year and you want to stop executing because you start getting into your emotions, which is what happens to most people and they don't execute, right? You're going to think about some of the lessons and some of the situations that Brad's been in that he overcame and that he's still overcoming at a super high level. And quite frankly, guys, where you see Brad at now, this is probably 10% of what he's probably going to do in his lifetime. And it's built off of an incredible story that most people fall prisoner to, and they just throw in the white flag on life for, right? So there's going to be a lot of cool stuff that you're going to get from this. But for the most part, guys, I want you guys to be locked in. And Brad, again, thank you so much. I know you're a very busy man. I want to take it, thank you for the opportunity to have you on here to pour into our members. And yeah, man, let's kind of start, if you don't mind, with just, one, sharing what your companies are now so people know exactly how they can support you, how they can follow you, and what you're involved in. And let's go into, your life story, how it started. Now you're an influence in first form. and we'll go into the Arete and all that stuff if that helps.
Absolutely, man. Holy, I got some big shoes to fill right now. So Devin, thanks for the intro. First off, I want to thank everyone for being on the call today. I realize now at this stage in my life that one thing I can't get back is time. So I do value your time, and I'm going to try to give as many nuggets that I can today. So like Devin said, some people look at it as a pretty cool story, but when you're talking from the lens of myself and in my shoes, it's just my life. And I think at this point in my life, humility has been one of my greatest factors and just keeping me grounded. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania, a little north of Philadelphia. For those of you that are in the Pennsylvania market, Billy Joel wrote a song about us up here in Allentown. So that's where I'm born and raised. I love my city. And I'm going to, not to make it sound like, over the river and through the woods kind of Cry Me a River story, but I grew up a typical inner city Allentown kid, single parent home. Father left when I was young, and I think we can all kind of agree and realize how important the male role model is in a family. Not that the mom isn't an important factor, but how important having a father is. It's just it literally changed my life. And I live with one premise, and I want everyone to understand this, that things happen for you and not to you. If Devin hasn't already said that already, I live by those words, that everything happens for you, whether it's bad, whether it's good, that happened for a reason. So my story's pretty simple. Grew up city kid, have two sisters that I absolutely love and adore. My parents, my father passed away a couple years ago. After rekindling that fire, after just years of being disconnected. Mom's still around. I am the father. My first responsibility as a man is my kids. I have two amazing kids, Brian and Natalie. Brian is my golden child, I like to call him. He's a United States Marine, kind of followed in my footsteps. And my daughter, 17-year-old, just got approved to go to ESU. So a lot of big things happen in our household. And this is coming from a kid who I joke, I grew up on block cheese and powder milk as a welfare kid. Not having a dad in my life really set the stage for who I became as a young man. And we didn't have a lot. And I grew up on the streets, and I figured, I had to kind of just survive on my own. So I started doing what most inner city kids do, is we watch a lot of movies. We see a lot of the bad kids do the bad things. And I just started I got heavily into crime. I was not wasn't a good kid, just to keep it as short as possible. I was doing a lot of bad things, got in trouble my senior year. And when I got in trouble, I thought because I was always a fast talker, I could talk my way out of it. And I came up with this cockamamie story that I was going to join the Marine Corps to try to get out of trouble. And this was back in 1993. And it was either I went into the Marine Corps or I went into a juvie home. So make a long story short, the United States Marine won that battle. So I enrolled and I enlisted into becoming a United States Marine. And, that was the first time I actually seen what a brotherhood was about. I seen what it was like to be part of a community. I seen what it was like to be part of something bigger than me, like having that mission. And it did start to mold my thinking into a positive way. But I still wasn't rehabbed as a young man. And I got out of the Marine Corps, and I just became a stronger, faster fighter of the streets. It fueled me to be a stronger criminal. And I really wasn't rehabbed yet. So fast forward, I'm going to just make a super long story short. I did a lot of bad things, to a lot of people. And I don't say that as a sense of pride, but I say it as a sense of a point where I will never go back and make that same mistake twice. Fast forward, got out of the Marine Corps, started getting right back into the same people that I was identifying with. And I got incarcerated. I did 4 years in federal prison. And at that point, that was the shift in my life. And I'll never forget the day. I got dropped on the compound, and I walked out, and I was smoking a cigarette on the cigarette deck. And there was this gentleman that was standing to the left of me. And just picture someone who's been locked up for a really long time, jailhouse tats, long hair, bad teeth, just looked like he just did a very, very, very hard bid. And he looked at me and he said, "Is this what you're going to do for the rest of your life, kid?" And that was the point where I look at it now. I feel God came down and touched me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Boy, you better get your life straight." And from that point, I decided to not turn back, and I never looked back on crime again. And the rest of my time in incarceration, I got my diploma. I studied. I got certified as a personal trainer. And all I did for the next 3 years was study, and really focused on personal development. Fast forward, I get out of prison and I got picked up by a national health club chain. You guys might have heard it, LA Fitness. I was with LA Fitness as one of their vice presidents for almost 18 years. And man, what a great organization. They taught me, they molded me, they gave me the tactical strategies to just win at life. And about 2018, I started to kind of really start to build up this kind of ideology of who I was, but more importantly, I always looked at my story as painting the picture of who I was, but then there was a shift in the dichotomy in how I was thinking. And at that point, even though I just tell my story is not who I am. In 2018, when I joined Arete and I teamed up with Andy Frisella and Ed Milet, I started to really understand the value of who I was, but more importantly, who I'm going to be and what am I going to do to get to that end road. And I went on a deep self-development. And how I started this process was I focused on my physical, which that was always something that was part of my life. I'm a fitness guy. I started to focus on my mental. I started to focus on my spiritual. And then the byproduct was the financial gains that I've made and the success that I've had. Now, what do I do now? I am a proud owner of a couple businesses and I'm an investor. I own a company called Trifecta Credit Solutions. Again, we launched during the pandemic. So any of you, I'm just going to put a little shameless plug out here. Anybody that has credit issues or you're dealing with clients that have credit issues, I got you. That has been a huge success. But my wife and I also launched in 2019. We opened up a medical spa up here in Allentown. So any of the ladies or the guys that want to get a little Botox going, we do Botox. We have a full aesthetic spa up here, and it has been a heaven sent. So I'm in the aesthetics business. I have a credit repair company, and I do have some property management that we're doing some investing on now. The past 3 years it's been such an amazing ride. But I want to start with what I just said about constantly looking in the rear view mirror about my past.
Brad, can I highlight something real quick?
Sure.
So this is the stuff that I want you to remember, guys, that I'm about to hit you with, and I hope it hits you deep and you don't forget this. Brad, the years that you were in prison, talk about what a day looked like for you.
Oh man. Wow.
Didn't you say like the 1 year it was what, 23 hours in a dark room? And talk about that real quick.
Yeah, and I didn't want to go too much down the rabbit hole, but yeah, let's talk about it. So when I got incarcerated, it was a federal charge. So I got transferred up to Pennsylvania. In the Federal Bureau of Prisons, you can request a transfer. So my charge was in Florida. I requested to be transferred up to the Pennsylvania market. And when I got transferred, I got put on the compound. This is the first time I was on the compound. And immediately I got called back to the lieutenant's office and they threw me in solitary confinement. I was in solitary confinement. Now, just to give you a visual, what solitary confinement is. Solitary confinement is about an 8x4 room that has a frosted glass that's about maybe 6 inches wide and about 12 inches tall. Solitary confinement is literally where I lost my mind multiple times, and I was locked up in solitary confinement only for the simple fact that I grew up with one of the corrections officers. And in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, you cannot know anyone or have any type of an affiliation with any of the COs. So I'm in the hole, and man, talk about a roller coaster of emotions. I thought about hanging myself. I thought, to get granular with this thought process, when you're sitting there day after day, feeling lost, feeling empty, your freedom's been stripped. And listen, I put myself there. I don't ever take away accountability. Accountability is like the backbone of my DNA. But when you're sitting there and you're sitting somewhere for 365 days in an 8x4 room, the thoughts that go through your mind, one of the thoughts was, who would miss me if I fucking hung my, excuse my language. I get emotional on this part. Who would miss me? Like if I hung myself right now, who would miss me? Here's this kid who did nothing but cause people grief in his life. Who would miss me?
So
I get a little choked up on this one.
Yeah, well, listen, man. One, thank you for even being this vulnerable. That's just a testament to who you are. But guys, listen, this is the deal. There's a reason why I wanted him to highlight this part, right? Is because right now there are people in that room right now. And I want you to look around to where you're at right now, right? And think about what the freedoms that you guys have, what you're able to do right now. And then the next thought is, I want you to think about what are things right now that you're not taking action on. And just imagine if you were in that room. If you were in that room for the next year, do you think you'd be balls to the wall? You know what? You let me out of this shit, I will fucking attack everything that you put in front of me. I will go after every dream. I will go after every diet. I will execute anything you tell me to do if you get me out of this shit. There's people that would cut their right and left arm off to be in a position that you're at right now. So I wanted you guys to really feel this. And look, that emotion, this doesn't come from, Brad's a pretty influential, strong guy, right? So I wanted you guys, this is great because I want you to feel the emotion and take this into the new year. And when you start thinking about maybe an opportunity that comes your way or something you know you should be doing, or whatever you're about to complain about, when you start getting into your emotions because business is hard, somebody didn't show up to work, nobody, whatever that bullshit is, just imagine, like, you could be in a room somewhere for 23 hours in a black hole, right? Use that as perspective to execute and take action on the shit that you know you should be doing in this new year, or the jump that you're afraid to make in this new year, right? Because at the end of the day, like, Brad, I want to tell you right now, I mean, I hope everybody feels this emotion right now, and you guys don't forget this shit in the new year, and you go after things that you would have never went after if you weren't on this call, right? So, Brad, I thank you for that, because listen, man, it's not, your passion behind this and stuff like that. And I hope you understand the influence that you have in the world today. And if you don't, I will tell you right now, you've influenced a lot of people right now. And but for the most part, man, I appreciate you even kind of bringing that up. And I just wanted people to feel to know, people are in that scenario right now. And there are things that you are just sissying out on in your life. And sometimes you need to hear shit like that to be like, what am I worried about? Why am I saying no to this? Why am I not taking this jump? Why am I concerned about what that person thinks? There's people right now that are in a prison cell for life sometimes, right? And that may sound, well, Devin, that's a little bit fucking crazy to think about. Well, listen, common sense isn't always common practice. If you have these brain hacks in your mind, you will execute on things that your mind won't have you execute on. And sometimes it's thinking about perspective, situations, shit like this. So
yeah, and spot on, and just realize anything is possible. You can do anything that you want. For me, I tap back into that burn. I tap back into that emotion. I got real emotional there for a second because I really haven't thought about that for a while. But the reality of it is when I got out, I swore, when that man asked me if this was going to be what I was going to do for the rest of my life, I made a commitment to myself and to everyone that was in my circle, my family, that there was no way in God's green earth that I'm going back down that route. And I could say with great pride, I haven't been around any of that circle. I cut them out. Now, what for you guys, and this is such an important part. I'm so glad you brought that back up. I'm getting fired up now, D. The reality of it is anything is possible. You could look at all of the obstacles, anything that's keeping you from it, and it's going to come down to a simple premise. And this is what I've discovered over the course of the past 18 months. There's a couple things. Number one, you have to have an honest conversation with yourself. Have an honest conversation with yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. And I did this. I physically did this. I looked in the mirror and I had a conversation with the man in the mirror. And I said, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Are you executing at the level? Do you want to go back? Is that the place you want to go? I forgave myself for all of the nonsense that I did. I forgave myself for all of the times I told myself I was going to do something and I never executed on it. I was intentional with that emotion, with having that conversation. And then it just comes down to discipline. Discipline for two things. Number one, do what you say you're going to do. This right here will move mountains if you simply do what you say you're going to do. And then two, again, being aware, say no to the things that keep you from it, right? Say no to those things. Say no. This is where you're going to massage your discipline muscle. Now, when I got out of prison, I created a lot of good habits. I eat healthy. I exercise on a daily basis. I read on a daily basis. Those were things that I was going through my process as I was becoming a vice president with LA Fitness. Those were the things that I kind of embedded into my head. And fast forward into entrepreneurship. Where I'm at right now, it took me 19 years to get where I'm at. This was not an overnight success. This is 19 years of becoming better, changing the neural patterns of my thought process, breaking the habit of being myself, that old guy. And just so you know, I still have crazy thoughts in my head. This has not stopped. I have to continue, but now I'm sharper. And how I did that, I focused on four things. I focused on my physical, right? I'm a firm believer. If your body's healthy, your brain will go in that path. So anybody who's not exercising and not taking care of their health, I would highly recommend, listen, you could reach out to me. I can help you. I can put you with the right people to get on that fitness program. And again, it doesn't have to be like your Hercules and, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Go for a walk, get some vitamin D, jump on a treadmill, take a yoga class, go rock climbing, do something to get the physical. That's number one. Number two, mental. Are you reading? Are you doing something to fill your cup to help you and aid you become a better version of yourself? And then the big thing for me, and I got to talk about it because it was a very, very important part of my growth process the past 24 months. On May 14th of last year, I still felt lost, even though I've had this great success. I was winning. Our med spa was doing well. We had our first 7-figure year. Everything was smooth sailing, but I still felt disconnected from something. My wife went in to take a shower on May 14th, and I literally dropped down on my knees and I prayed. And I prayed for God to help put the people, places, and things in front of me to allow me to continue to be a force for good. Then I started to tap into the spiritual. And I say this with great pride, not as a look at me and look at all of the success I had. That is not me. That's not part of my DNA. But because I got my physical, I got my mental, and I got my spiritual all kind of working together, the financial portion has been 10x, right? We hear 10x all the time. This year, I could say with great pride, we've hit multiple 7 figures. Multiple.
Let's go, baby.
Anything is possible, guys. Now, how I did that, I focused on the discipline muscle, discipline to do what I said I was going to do. Now, when you're doing this, I think we're all in this networking, and sometimes we try to stretch ourselves. I was very aware of the conversations that I was talking to people, and I was very aware of my bandwidth and making sure that if I said I was going to do something, I did it. That DNA, that hardwiring, you start to really massage that discipline muscle. I can guarantee you your life will change exponentially. That's number one. And then number two, say no to the things that keep you from it. Say no to the people that keep you from it. Watch the energy that you're giving out. Watch the energy that people are taking away from you. And again, you're going to hear me say this all the time. Anything is possible. You're talking to a high school dropout, convicted felon, drug addict. If I can do it, I used to say this all the time. If I can do it, anyone can do it. That's not true. If I can do it, anyone can do it if you take action. You have to take action on these things. You can't just wish for it. You can't just think about it. And I'm all about the manifestation. If you see it in your mind, you could hold it in your hand. I'm all about that. But it requires work. It's biblical that God blesses the people who put in the work. It's literally, it's been written time and time again. Now, when you look at your current situation, whatever it is, we're going into 2022. Think about your personal goals. Think about your professional goals. Think about your family goals. Think about your financial goals, right? Professional, personal, family, financial, PPFF, write that down. PPFF, your personal. And I don't know if Devin has different strategies, but focus on your personal goals, your professional goals, your family goals, and your financial goals. Write it down. For those of you that can't see, I write everything down. I'm a whiteboard animal. I write everything down. If you can't see it in your mind, you're never going to be able to hold it in your hand. And when we talk about community, Arete, my Arete brothers and sisters, we have a very deep-rooted understanding when we communicate with each other. We execute. We execute. That is the DNA of how we operate together. A lot of times when you're working in a community setting, sometimes there's a lot of downtime on just kind of, hey, how are you? Oh my God, how's it going? Good to see you. Everything good? It's very topical. Where your intention comes with your relationships is everything. I look at it at this. I only have so much bandwidth in a day. So if I'm going to talk to someone, if I'm coaching someone, I make sure, and I set this very clear when I coach people, if you're not going to do what you say you're going to do, I got to give my time to someone else. And all of my Arete brothers believe this way, because we could be doing something else that's going to help somebody else so we can create a positive impact, one of our core values. So that's number one. How do you get the most out of the group? Keep it real and do what you say you're going to do. If you're connecting with someone, connect with them. Find out about who they are, how they operate. Make sure that you set very clear expectations. I think all relationships, marital, business, any type of relationship, when you set those expectations, and here, Devin and I had this expectation when we first connected. I was very clear. Listen, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. I need that same thing from you. And this is why him and I have hit it off so well, because we do what we say we're going to do. We keep it real. He asked me questions about certain things. If I didn't know, I don't try to act like I know. I don't know it all. But I tell you what, if I didn't have the answer, I could probably find someone who does. And just keep it real. I think one of the best part. What's that?
I want to go in on that with you. Because one, I want you guys to note, right? When we talk about the many separators of the harvest versus what you guys outside of the harvest around here are used to doing, like the typical networking events that you guys are all part of. What Brad was talking about, like this, the difference is like the deep connection of doing what you say you're going to do in the harvest, right? All these other network, it's just like we get drinks together. It's all the same bullshit conversations. Most of the time, people ain't doing shit for you anyway. You're playing entrepreneur. You're playing business. Oh, my company makes me do this shit, so let me just go out. And you're like, man, I'm going to all these things. I'm losing my family. I'm fucking always out doing this, always out doing that. I'm not really seeing a lot of business. Like, this is the difference. And I want you to understand what Brad just said about like, and how you do that, because that's the expectation. That's which is why a lot of people are winning big in here. It's not just like the typical net. It's like, no, go deep with each other. What is it that you want to do? And I'll give you an example. Brad, I remember when I reached out to him, I was like, damn, he's from Allentown. That's right around the corner. And I just paid 15 grand. That's why investing in yourself, investing to be a part of this stuff, look what it can turn into. I went to that. And then because I was at that event, I saw, damn, he got recognized. Ed, that's insane. Oh, shit, he's from Allentown? What? That's right here. So I reached out to him. Literally, I talked to him. We were on the phone for like a half hour in deep conversation. It wasn't like a little bullshit conversation. Next thing you know, we stayed connected. And then, I forget how, but we were talking about the software that I told you guys all about that some of you still can't wrap your head around. But Brad knows. He was like, dude, this shit is insane. I got 1 million people that I can get this in front of right now that I know will benefit. The next 5 days, Brad fired over literally text message intros to some ridiculous individuals that are super successful that we're in conversations with. He did what he said he was going to do. Right. And, you know, even before that, once I got off the phone with Brad, I made intros to him for credit repair, all that shit. And now it's like, who knows what this relationship will go to in the future. And I know it'll be a very high level. Right. But understand that, guys, you don't half-ass this when you're on these calls. Intentional. When you set a one-on-one with people, intentional. Introduce. Do what you say you're going to do. When you join the harvest, what did you say? I'm going to show up to every call. I'm going to add value. I'm going to do different habits. I'm going to change. I'm going to tell people about this. I'm going to contribute and invite other members to the harvest. Well, you know, are you doing what you, to yourself? Are you doing what you truly? And if the answer is yes, awesome. But like, that's the mindset that you got to have. So I just wanted to elaborate to just verify what Brad's saying. I've seen it firsthand directly from him. Right. And I wanted to share that with you guys. So, Brad, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you can go into some other stuff too.
It's super important. Now, I want to talk about mindset just for a second, because I think sometimes when we're in business, mindset, even though people talk about it, they don't really peel back the onion to kind of go deep into the mindset. Right. And I want to talk about controlling the conversation in your head. This has probably been one of the greatest skill sets that I have created since the beginning of the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, me and my family, I mean, 2020 was our best year ever. And I used to tread lightly on saying that. I used to say, well, man, there was a lot of people who got hit. You know, a lot of people were affected on it. But there's a reason why 2020 was our best year. And just so you know, 2021, we destroyed 2020. Because we kept the same mindset, right? Being able to control the conversation in your head. And I'm just going to give you a scenario. How many husbands and wives do we have on here? We got a lot of husbands and wives. And I could use this just because it's something that most people can kind of relate to. So you're at home, you're with your wife, and let's just say your wife kind of has her thing going and you got your thing going. And you come up with a great idea. You're like, man, I got this great idea. I want to do this. I want to do that. And immediately your wife is like, well, why would you want to do that? They question, right? At least listen, I love my wife to death. She questions everything I do. It's the nurse in her. Her human need is certainty. She has to be certain about everything. And I'm variety. I'm just like, let's go. Let's roll with it. We'll just take it as we go. So let's just say you're in that conversation with your significant other and they're just like, you know, completely going against the grain on everything you do. Now comes the conversation in your head. Why doesn't she trust me? She doesn't believe me. She doesn't believe in me. You start this whole narrative in your thought process. And this just doesn't happen in spouse and significant others. This happens so many times. Like if you're trying to push something and you're not getting what you want, or you're not getting the result that you want, you start to have this conversation in your head. That conversation, if you can't control it and be aware of what you're thinking, and most importantly, not concentrating on the problem, be focused on the solution. So now, again, after we're going on almost 19 months of me controlling this narrative in my head. Anytime something bad comes my way, I literally go into solution mode. We just here, I'll give you a great example. Someone called the state, one of our competitors called the State Board of Nursing on us, and they filed an official complaint on us, right? And again, we know where it came from. It was one of our competitors. It was a BS complaint. My wife got the, you know, when we got the complaint, she was like doom and gloom. She's going to lose her nursing license. All kinds of craziness just went through her head. Me, knowing where I've been and what we've done, I'm just like, stop, pause the break, honey. We have a lawyer. We have a legal team. We have financial freedom. We're going to get through this. I'm not even worried about it. We're going to plow through this. I'm going to be so concentrated on the solution that believe it or not, we're going to come out stronger. I guarantee you. And she was just like, how can you say this? You're always optimist. This is real. This is the state, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, let me run my play. immediately.
I'm called a robot. My wife thinks I'm a fucking robot.
Robot, right? You're like,
you're a robot.
That's not how the world works. Fast forward, not only did we come up with a very great solution to our problem, now with the solution that we've implemented, we're bulletproof. No one could ever come at us and complain about what we're doing. The foundation that we've created, because I went into solution mode, I wasn't concentrating on the problem. I was concentrating on the solution and the what ifs. And then I just kept pushing and driving. And I didn't accept no for an answer. I knew there was a solution. We can't be the only people out of almost 8 billion people in the world that had this complaint. What you control in your mind is what you're going to bring to in life. And that's the reality of it. Let's talk about goals, real estate, mortgage industry, lending, business, whatever that goal is, set it, see it. I'm a firm believer of communicating. Like my wife, I have big, hairy goals. I have a big, hairy number that I want to have in our bank accounts by the end of 2023. There's things that I want. Yep. Where the focus goes, the energy flows. Exactly. But it requires actionable steps that come on it. If you could see it in your mind, I am a firm believer you can hold it in your hand if you take the appropriate actions. And in short, guys, focus on your physical, because when your body is healthy and your body's working the right way, your thinking is going to be in line with how you're thinking and feeling. And if you're thinking and feeling good, and you're putting in the appropriate steps and the actionable steps to get to where you want to be, it's not a matter of, is it going to happen for you? It's a matter of, when is it going to happen for you? And I promise you, my hand to the big man, my biggest, and what I firmly believe got me to where I'm at right now, besides all of that, what I just kind of gave to you, is two simple notions. Number one, always do the right thing, even if it doesn't benefit you. Always do the right thing. In everything that you do, do the right thing. That's moral and ethical. Number one. And number two, have a sick work ethic. Those two things combined, you can't, how can you lose? You can't. It's a statistical fact that if you're doing the right thing, you're driving, you're focused, your intentions are there, that vision that you have in your mind, as crazy and convoluted as some people may say it is, if you believe it and you could change the ethos of your body and how you're operating, and more importantly, that your actions are meeting everything that's coming out of your mouth and what you see in your head, you will manifest and bring to life everything that you want in your life. And I'm going to kind of end this with how we started it. Anything is possible with taking action.
Woo! Fired up. I'm fired up. You guys know I'm always trying to be fired up too, so that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the many big things that I want you guys to please latch on to, man, is controlling the conversation. Guys, this is so huge. I got to deal with it. Brad has to deal with it. We've sat in events where Andy and Ed admit that they still have to deal with, like, everybody. So don't think that, oh, this is woe is me. It's just me. How do these people, they don't have to deal with this. That's why they're like, no, everybody. It's who is being intentional with controlling the message that you're talking to yourself. Imagine, it's so crazy to where if you can step outside of your body and just watch the conversation that you have with yourself and you're the critic, you'd be like, damn, what the hell am I saying to myself? This is fucking crazy, right? But when you start controlling this stuff, imagine you're getting into a new business. Imagine when you're pitching a sale and somebody says no. What immediately you start self-doubting yourself. Man, can I really help people with my service? Am I really worth it? Like, all the shit you start saying to yourself, right? Guys, if you start being more aware to this, you'll start catching it more often. And then you'll get 1% better every single day. Oh, I saw that. Let me block that shit away. Oh, saw that. The problem is most people don't want to take the time to find these issues, to find their blind spots. Because what happens? They get uncomfortable. Now they saw, well, I got something wrong with me. Well, no shit, everybody has something wrong with them. It's the people that attack their weaknesses that go after it and get stronger, right? So I want you guys to start identifying and picking up these points where you start kind of just hearing yourself talk back to yourself with some bullshit, right? Because it happens to everybody, and start getting better at controlling it. You don't think Brad has every man, like, this is another good point that he said I don't want you guys to miss. Always go back to, you don't want to be a prisoner of your past, but a lot of times I want you guys to sometimes think about your past to motivate you to continue those good habits so you never go back to that shit. There's restaurants my old restaurant that I got fired from when I was like 21 years old. I told you guys the story, most of you the story. Jim Butts, we had a conversation when we had our one-on-ones, right? I love going back there, right? 15 years later, because it reminds me of what happened. Right. And it reminds me, never get too comfortable. It keeps me fired up. It reminds me where I'm at right now versus like, I love going back to those spots just to fucking like be like, man, like one, I'm proud of you, but two, don't get too sweet because your ass, you know what I mean? Like that's always good. So, think about that too. That was huge. It's like, I'm not going back there. So
can I add in on that real quick?
Oh, yeah.
For years, I want to just talk about the context of conversation, right? How many times have you seen somebody and you're like, hey man, how you doing? And you hear, same shit, different day, right? Same shit, different day. And it's just a very passive conversation. I used to always say this, man, I'm a high school dropout convicted felon. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, right? I always used to say that. I would kind of downplay myself, and that's toxic. And I want everyone to understand that's also part of the narrative that you're feeding your subconscious. And you got to remember, the subconscious mind from a neural pattern is a very, 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 very intricate system. Your talk and what comes out of your mouth is recorded. Everything you say and think is recorded in this supercomputer called your subconscious. Now, over time, from constantly saying that, you're creating actual physical neural patterns that get you to think that way. And I always used to say, man, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. And it was a downplay to try to say I'm not that smart. But probably about 8 or 9 months ago, one of my coaches brought it to my attention. He was like, what the hell are you talking about? You're not that smart. Why do you say that? Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. He was like, look at what you have accomplished. How can you say you're not that smart? And when I heard that, hearing it from someone else, it changed. And you know what? And I'm not saying this to be like braggadocious or anything. I'm a pretty smart guy. Like I could figure some shit out, right? I'm not like I can't cure cancer or anything like that. But when it comes to business strategy, sales, marketing, leadership, I've put the work in and put in enough hours that I could say, yeah, I'm pretty freaking good at this. And what that did to my energy, what that did to my self-talk, it changed the vibration in how I thought. Because when I would get around the Andys and the Eds, there was always this feeling of, oh my God, they're so much better than me. But the reality of it is I'm just on chapter 5. They're on chapter 20. That's the only difference. That is the only difference. I could chop it up. I could talk tactical strategies. I could talk about sales and leadership and all of this stuff. And you know what? I am a pretty smart individual. I have a certain level of intelligence. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not a lifetime student and I'm not always eagerly wanting to learn more. But again, that's part of that narrative that you feed yourself. And it usually comes when something bad happens. Oh man, I knew I shouldn't have did that, or I knew I shouldn't have done that. And that's where the limiting beliefs come into play. So just again, what you're saying, be very cautious of what you're speaking, right? When someone says, how you doing today? It's okay to say, no, I'm having a shitty day. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm going to fix it. You ask me, I'm going to keep it real.
Honestly, because people are dying for authenticity. It's like living the dream. Like, how many times do people say that shit?
Oh, right? My God. Drives me crazy.
Oh, my gosh. But I'd rather hear you say, man, today's fucked. Or what? Excuse my, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, man, like, all right, cool. Let's talk about this shit. Like, you may have a better conversation like that.
Yeah. And, people keep asking me, oh, man, you're killing it. And I'm just like, no, I'm not killing it. Maybe in your eyes, I'm killing it. In my eyes, I'm not killing it. I got work to do. I'm literally on the bottom ring, climbing up a huge ladder. I'm on the bottom. And again, that doesn't mean that I don't look at my success and I don't understand where I've come from. There is success in that. But when it comes to the conversation in my head, like people say, hey, oh man, how you doing? And I'm just simple. I'm working. Nothing sexy about it. I'm working. I'm literally, I'm putting one foot in front of the other. It doesn't always have to be, oh, living the dream. Because if we were all living the dream, if I was living the dream, I would literally have a mansion on a beach with an amazing gym that overlooks the ocean, and I would have billions of dollars, and I'd be creating so much positive impact in people's lives. That's me living the dream. When I could serve others and not have to worry where the money's coming from, that's me living my dream. And I'm not doing that yet, so I'm not living a dream. Like when I hear that, I'm so glad you brought that up. Living the dream, same shit, different day. No, it's not the same shit, different day. I am executing new things on a daily basis. That is such an important part of that conversation. So again, when I talked about being aware, be aware of what you think and be aware of what you say, because that awareness is going to create a different set of intentions when you're committing to people, when you're talking to people, and most importantly, when you're talking to yourself.
Love that. We got 2 questions coming up, but before I forget, there's one thing I wanted to highlight when I was talking to Brad. I'll never forget this. And I may not say it the exact same words, but we were just talking. He's like, Devin, you know what, man? He goes, because this is huge for you guys to know when we continue to pour into you how to get the most out of this community and your relationships in here to grow at a high level. He goes, Devin, I'm just focused on, what was the words that you used? Just like helping as many people as I can without expecting anything in return, because I know that if I just continue to do this, it's going to come back to me.
Right.
Right.
If you truly want to be successful, you must be willing to help as many people as possible without expecting anything in return. Do things for others that could never repay you. And that philosophy, that mantra, that core value I have, I will help as many people as possible. And I do put conditions on it. They got to do what they say they're going to do, and they got to pay it forward. I set expectations in every conversation. But when you do things for others that can't ever repay you, man, it literally fills my cup up so much that I'm not even worried about money. And we talked about this in coaching, right? I in 2019, I thought about being a coach and help coaching people. But I went out to, I was out at Brad Lee's office out in Vegas, and I saw something that just caught my eye, and I'll never forget it. He has this huge sign in the middle of his conference room, and it says, "Get the knowledge from the people who have it and give it to the people who need it." Give it to the people who need it, not sell it to the people who need it. Give it to the people who need it. And for me, the more you give without expecting anything in return, and again, it's not because that's not my strategy. That's just what I do. And because the intent is so pure, I would seriously sound like I'm bullshitting about all of the things that have happened in a positive way in my life, and literally gifts from God that have literally been placed at my doorstep, and it wasn't even expected.
Love that. Let's get to the questions here. Jim, Mr. Butts, hop on in here, brother, because you have an amazing story too, brother.
Hey, Brad. We have a similar background. It's always good to hear someone else accomplishing things that I look to accomplish. With your story and all the things that you went through, has it gotten to the point where you embrace your past instead of looking at it like it was something that you wish you could change or something that you regret? You know, because I know when I'm talking to people, I don't feel like I should change or I would change anything in my past. Like what I went through was what I had to get through to get where I'm at. So is that the point that you're at with the self-acceptance and stuff?
I have no regrets. Zero regrets. And even though I did a lot of bad things, I mean, I was 22 years old making like 30, 40 grand a week. I made some pretty cool experiences. I lived some things that most men will never see in their days. But to answer your question, it's just a chapter in my book. And I look at it like that. I look at it as a chapter. It's a resource center for me. It's something that I know I could always go back to. And for years, even when I was at LA Fitness, and I'm here, this is a great question. When I was at LA Fitness, no one knew my past. No one. Like, it was like top secret. Like, I was this, because I was a convicted felon. I thought, I'm a vice president now. I can't have that past. Like, I had to be this golden boy for the company. And I'll never forget when everything got exposed. The Morning Call, the local paper here, make a long story short, the local paper put my case on the front of the Morning Call, and it literally said, look who's running LA Fitness, convicted felon, blah, 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 my whole case. And that was the first time it got out. And I remember feeling embarrassed. And I remember feeling like I was almost like a fraud to people. It just wasn't a good feeling. I look back on that time now. The reason why I felt that way is because I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't being genuine. I wasn't being honest. I was hiding this secret, right? And when it would come up, I really wouldn't talk about it. But the reality of it is, it happened. It happened. I can't do nothing about it. Is that who I am now? And now I look back on it in hindsight, no regrets. Like, that is physically a chapter in my book. It is not who I am. And more importantly, it's not where I'm going. And I use it almost like if I use it as like a book where I could come up and I could open up the chapter and I could talk about that chapter. It's literally a chapter in the book. It's not who I identify as. And being authentic with that and just being completely transparent, it took the burden off of me, because now it's, listen, love me or leave me. You get 100% of me. This is who I am. I got nothing to hide. I got nothing to show. Yep. That was chapter 23 in my 46-year chapter that I'm writing right now. Does that make sense?
Justin's got the next question. I remember when I was working with him, I told him, one of my coaches told me, he's like, Devin, the most powerful people I know are the people who have nothing to hide. Right. And I felt that shit in my chest, man. It was just like, whew. And then it goes back to and I've mentioned this to you guys. There's a lot of people, like Brad knows, Ed always preaches, your oddity is your commodity. There's a lot of people right now who are hiding from a story that could blow up your brand if you have the courage to tell it. Right? That could make you super successful, give you a huge following, break so many chains off of you right now that you're probably latched onto, that you've been handcuffed to, because in your mind, you thought that this is something that is just taking you down. Meanwhile, if you reverse engineer that and understand that there's probably a lot of people that need to see a success story in this stage. I mean, we had Derek Lunston, our last guest speaker, has a company called Life Guides, right? They have guides for people throughout the world that go and help people with that specific struggle that they dealt with. And they give them a guide. That person turned their oddity into a commodity. Now they're getting paid off of that. So guys, you have an explosion of sales, of brand, of awareness, of community that would be following you and supporting you and buying from you if you had the courage to tell that story. Unless you killed somebody yesterday. Won't tell that. But Justin, you're up next.
Thanks, Dev. Brad, first, just want to thank you, obviously, for your time and for sharing everything. This has been an amazing call, to say the least. I want to speak on, so there are quite a few of us in this group have done 75 hard and completed it. So I completely am with you with the physical, mental, spiritual leads to the financial. My question mostly is, I feel like I've built a ton of momentum in the physical and those mental buckets, but spiritual is what I find myself struggling with the most, to really build that momentum daily. So I was just wondering, what are some things that you do? Maybe is it a daily habit? So I've expressed to Devin, like going to church on Sunday plus a workout. Those two things, when they compound, it's like Sunday is like an invincible day for me. And I try to recreate that. So I'm just looking for maybe some tips and some things that you do that really help you stay connected.
Wow, that is a great question, and super, super glad that you asked that, Justin. So when I did this, and just so you know, Justin, I'm still trying to figure out this relationship. It's only been a little over a year since I started this walk. Believe it or not, I use the Bible app. I use the Bible app every day. There's a little lesson plan, and then down on the bottom, I'll show you here, man. This has been a part, and finding people that have the same values. right? I'm sure there's someone in your circle, and believe it or not, what I found was there are more people that I have a synergy with that are faith driven, that I didn't even know until I started talking about it. Like I didn't talk about it. It was something like I kept for myself because, you know, I've seen it in prison a million times. Everyone gets locked up and all of a sudden we used to call them Bible bangers. They'd be a Bible banger and all of a sudden they found God. And I would just be like, dude, shut up. You're going to be doing the same. Like I was the negative guy that was just like, shut your mouth. So I would always hold that back. But I find the more I talk about it, I find other like-minded individuals. So being able to talk about it, and it's going to be a little quirky. It's going to be a little new for you. But over time, now there's on that same when you talk about it, I found one guy, matter of fact, this was at the summit, and I found one of our Arete brothers. I love him to death, and I'll keep his name out, but he is pro Jesus. I mean, he's sitting there preaching. He's like, I can't believe I found you. I want to give you a hug. And he was just like, and I'm just like, hey, I'm like a newlywed in this. You got to back up. You're scaring me a little bit, bro. So just kind of just start to keep these relationships with different people who are faith driven. Read your Bible daily. And what I found, I just took it home with me. John Maxwell, if you're a leadership guy, John Maxwell has the John Maxwell Leadership Bible. It's like $30 on Amazon. Now there's two. Now for me, what I found is that the New King James Version has the language that's like thou art this and thou art that, and through my brain don't work that way. Like I got to be able to read it in like a regular. So they have an American version that just kind of makes it simple. And that's another important thing when you're reading it from that context in the old school, like English, so to speak. You can't understand what it's saying. Like for me anyway, that's what I've experienced. So in the Bible app, you could change which version you're reading. And they have one that's simply like the American version. That's like you're reading a regular book. That has been a great success. And here, I'm going to show you this on the Bible app. On the bottom of the Bible app, this has been really good for me. If you guys could see this. So on the Bible app, this is going to be your daily prayer, right? But then down on the bottom, right here, there's a space for you to have guided prayer. So when I click on that, and I want you to hear this. I literally, my morning routine, after I read, after I have my moment of gratitude, I will literally set this, and it literally, you could hear the music in the background. I turn it down so it's soft, and I put my hand over my eyes, and I just start to think of all of the amazing things in my life. I have a roof over my head. My family's healthy. My kids are healthy. I'm grateful for the relationships, last week, Devin was in my prayers. I was grateful that God put this guy in my life. I'm grateful that he connected me with his other partner, Nick. I just start really thinking about, and notice that's just playing in the background, and it does something to you. It kind of helps you get that mindset. And you got to remember, we're visual and tactical people in the day and age that we live in. Meaning tactile, meaning we like to touch and see and feel. We live in a state right now that we have to be able to invoke that emotion. And when I hear this music, and it starts off by saying, whatever you're carrying, whatever hurt you're holding on to, this was today, open your hands up and visualizing of letting it go. And my wife's sick right now. And I was just like, man, get this woman sick so she stops driving me crazy. In my head, that's what I was saying, right? I'm praying that, my daughter has a successful year. I just, whatever, and I think this is the most important part. Justin, it was Justin, right? The most important part is just allow it to come off your heart. Like speak from the heart, and you're going to notice a vibration change. You're going to notice an energy that just starts to change. And literally every day, the first thing I ask for is, God, please put the people, places, and things in front of me to allow me to be a force for good. And the most amazing people have come into my life in the past 19 months. I can't even make this stuff up. And you know what another thing is, to touch base on this, and this was such a great question. You think of people who are faith driven, I thought anyway, of people who are faith driven as being perfect, right? This perfect human being. And what I've come to realize is that I'm not perfect. I still have a psychopath in my head that wants to stomp people and punch people in the throat, right, on a regular basis. I got that natural aggression to me. It's just how I operate. And I'm not perfect. And the moment I realized that I'm not perfect, and I just listen, and this is the great thing. You can Google anything. And I Googled perfection in the Bible, and everything says, stop trying to be perfect. God takes you flawed. He takes you with your crazy thoughts. He takes you every time that you've sinned. Now, there is a fact where if you are doing things that are keeping you from it, and here I had this conversation with a good buddy. Pornography was big in his life, and he had to stop doing it. That was something that he had to cut out of his life. And the second that he cut it out, things just opened. So when you start to recognize the things that are keeping you from it, this is that other part of the discipline muscle. Being able to say no to those things is super important. But in short, let it just come from the heart, man. Let it come from what's on your mind. And again, just like exercise, if you're at it every day, you're continuing to put one foot in front of the other, you're continuing to just lay one brick at a time. Over time, you're going to start to feel different. It changes the ethos in you. Did that help you out?
That was awesome. I really appreciate that.
Good.
Yeah, guys. Brad, thanks for that too. And guys, I share with you a lot. You know, there's some things that on earth, like they're not going to be able to help. There's some things that your wife can't help you. Your husband can't help you. There's some things that your boss, your coach, whoever, can't help you. You're going to have to dig deep and find something that's bigger than everything right now, whether it's the universe or listen, some of you right now, Devin, listen, I went to my church. I can't get into it. I can't figure that shit out. It's not relevant to real life. Well, go try and find another church. Right. I'm telling you, this can save people's lives. Go find a church that is relevant to you. I've invited people tomorrow to the Assembly of God. They came there like, shit, I've never seen church like that ever before in my life. People are literally crying in church. And Justin was one of them. Shit, I cry every fucking Sunday in church. Excuse my language. You know what I mean? But the bottom line is go find one that fires you up. It will be a life game changer in your life. Facts. You need something that's bigger than us down here. Everybody does. The sooner you identify that, whether it's the universe, whatever that is, guys, I don't know, but you're going to need that at some point. So take that seriously, because this has been a big game changer in my life too. Mike Fulgenetti, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Brad, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you being here today. Justin, to your point and your plight, about 2 years ago, I was struggling with trying to be very religious, church every Sunday, but trying to build up my daily routine. I was just looking for devotionals, and I find that a lot of the devotionals kind of speak with as Brad was saying, art now a little bit above my head, where I'm not really gaining the content and the relatability. But I found it was and I had to look up to make sure I got the title right, the 1 year Uncommon Life Daily Challenge, which was a daily devotional by Tony Dungy. And being the athlete that you are, the football player that you are, each one of those, it's a page. I mean, it's a tiny short page. You can read it in about a minute and a half. It gives you a little verse to relate it to. And I tell you what, I was looking forward to that every morning. You start that day with that little gem, and it wasn't very preachy. It wasn't very scripture, chapter, verse, which isn't me. Very religious, but I couldn't quote the Bible if my life depended on it. But the principles were all there. It was awesome. It was awesome. So I highly recommend it. The Uncommon Life. I'll shoot you a text message with a picture of it. I love it. I'll go back to it every once in a while when I need a little jolt. I'll be like, all right, what's today's date? And you just go to that date regardless. I pulled off the shelf. But yeah, the Uncommon Life, it's a daily challenge devotional, man. It was awesome.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, Mike.
and to answer to piggyback on what Mike said, Mike, I've heard that before. I heard that's a great daily devotional. I'll send Devin two that I picked up. Matter of fact, I'm going to pick up that Tony Dungy one for 2022. Great reminder. Thank you. But I got two very simple devotionals that I can kind of go back to. And again, this is where you're solution oriented, right? Be solution oriented. There's 7 billion people in the world. I can guarantee you someone's going through the same things that you're going through. And I say this with great pride. I'm a gifted and talented thief. I'm a gifted mimic and talented thief. I probably don't got an original thought in my head, but yeah, those are two great resources.
Stuff. Mr. Deduke.
Yeah, make sure, Devin, if you get that, Brad, share those 2 devotionals that you have that you go back to. I'd love to add 2 more to the shelf. I'd really appreciate it.
I sure will.
Mr. Deduke.
Thanks, Devin. Thanks, Brad, for coming today. I'm sorry to be late to the party, but I caught the tail end of what you said, and I think I understand where you're coming from. It's really hard to look at people who are ingrained in their faith and not think that their life in some way, shape, or form is more perfect than ours. But at the same time, I think it's also really important to keep in mind that those people not only just not perfect, but they're also as flawed as we are. Because some folks go to church and think that's an excuse to treat people like shit. And they don't give you when you get your Eucharist and you drink your wine at a Catholic church, God help us. They don't hand you a card that says you can treat everybody like you are better than them because they didn't go to church. At the same time, going to church is important. I mean, it is a part of a regimen. I just wanted to bring up a point, though. One thing that we might have talked about I think it was last call, and it might have been Deep Roots, and I'm just mixing the two. But finding the time to talk to yourself in a positive way. I do it sometimes when I'm walking around my neighborhood or I'm walking around my building. One of the ways that I mask people not thinking I'm a total psychopath is I wear a mask to cover my mouth as a way of doing it. For the 5 minutes that you talk to yourself about all these positive and negative things, talk to God for a second. Just kind of stop yourself and say, okay, I've spoken to myself. Who else or what else could I speak to kind of give myself the reassurance that I'm on the right path? And God will speak to you. For those of you who aren't religious, that's fine. Still continue to speak to yourself. But for those of you who are, consider at least making that sort of part of your regimen. That's all.
Yeah. Kevin, such a great point. Right before we jumped on this call, I put it in his hands all the time. I literally put it in his hands and I just said, hey, come through me out of my mouth and allow me to create some positivity in some men and women's lives. And again, it is so important to have that conversation because it's not just a morning thing. And to piggyback on Justin, it's not just a morning thing. When you start to kind of really create the relationship, it's a conversation all the time. And it's just a quick, hey man, I'm about to get on the Zoom, Devin's. And I just literally, it took me 30 seconds and I'm just like, ride with me here. I want to put some fire into these people. Let's go. And it's a quick touch, right? Great point, Kevin.
Yeah, that was on the Deep Roots call, man. Just because sometimes you got to be your own cheerleader too. When we talk about battling these voices, if you hear yourself say something negative, nope. And I know people heard of affirmations, but if you believe in them and you keep anchoring them and then you back it up with energy, just like anything else, guys, so many times I told you, being a leader, sometimes you over deliver for so many people and you don't fucking see a thank you. Most times it's like trying to, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Let me add this. I'm not hearing sometimes you get so much into your own head to where you got to be your own cheerleader just to get you fired up to keep going. You know what I mean? So great stuff, Kev. Mr. Silva.
Yes. First of all, Brad, thank you, man. It's excellent stuff you're saying. It's 100%. You're hitting on, it's such a simple thing, being a good person in action, right? Just the discipline. It's sometimes we get confused because we try to layer on too much stuff, but in reality, sometimes it's just that simple. It's hard, but it's just that simple. But so thank you very much for being here today, man. I really appreciate it. But also to Justin, one thing you're talking about. At one time, just so you guys know, I mean, I was grew up Catholic, Roman Catholic, but then I spent about 10 years going to a Church of God, Pentecostal church, with my wife. So, I mean, if any of you are familiar with that, that is a full-blown experience, man. I mean, it is all of it. It is what you see in the movies and then some. It's intense, but it did give me a lot of exposure and, getting to the spiritual side. But one thing I might recommend, Justin, man, is you'll find people, if you put together a virtual Zoom Bible study,
Dude,
not even really, just.
Oh, you mentioned that.
Of course, if you put something like that, man, trying to bring yourself, if you bring other people along and find other people that want to go along, will help you to go along, right? It's like if you want to become a better student, be the teacher, right? Lead that Bible study, put it together, be that action. You want to get it together, that's the action. Put together, you'll get 2, you'll get 4, you'll get 10. You may get less, but it doesn't matter. The point is, you'll be fulfilling what you need for yourself, but I'm sure the fruits of that will be spread out far and wide by just who you're bringing into that and the involvement there. So that would be my recommendation. That would be something you want to get closer, get other people closer to you that want to get closer.
So for those, we had a breakfast with my pastor, John, I think it was months back. And he always asked me, when are we doing it again? When are we doing it again? I was trying to get him scheduled a couple weeks ago, but stuff happened and it was my fault. But what I want to start doing is a first Friday every month is do a first Friday call where people that want to get on, our pastor, really cool dude, man. He's in flannels, nothing intimidating, nothing crazy, pretty laid back dude. So first Friday of every month, we're going to have kind of my pastor is going to tie in something to do, tie in the Bible with leadership or business, and that's what's going to be the content. So we're going to have that in place. I already talked to him about that. So to Joe's point, we are going to have that. I got a lot of cool plans for us in 2022, but that's definitely going to be one of them. So just know that that's going to be in the future for those that have any interest in that. So,
and Joe,
I just want to say one quick thing though, just to Justin's point. Even with that being said, or to your point, that's great, but I would still encourage Justin because I feel it's within him that he puts together that Bible study. It doesn't even have to be a Bible study, something. It's just a group that's of people who are kind of in the same place. Maybe want to get closer and just find a way. You know what I mean? That's it. But I would still encourage you to go down that path.
Agreed. And I couldn't agree with you more, Joe. I had that same thought, that same kind of feeling. So I have a little group that I have, and we get together every Tuesday night at 8:00. We do a Zoom. I vetted these people out to make sure that they were of the proper DNA and pedigree. It helps exponentially because now I'm in a 30-minute call with men that are high power performers that the whole conversation is about our faith. And it's based off of 4 premises: being a better father, being a better husband, being a better brother, and being a better leader. Those were the 4 that we focus on this call group. But I would 1000% agree with Joe and seek that, because they say when 2 or more people get together and they start talking about the Lord, that's a service, that's a praise.
I just got to jump in and say something, man. That's the people in the group will say this. There's 3 things. I had a marriage that didn't work out well. It's better now because we're in different places, so we're not together. But for the children, but the point in time when I realized that something needed to happen was almost to your exact point. Was there were 3 things I realized that were my prime responsibilities in life And that was to be a role model to my sons, as a man, as a father, and as a husband. And I wasn't doing those things at that time. So it's maybe it's preordained that you're on this call and we're talking about that, because that is, man, when you step out and look at the reality of what is the most important things in your life that you need to be accomplishing and doing, then the rest of it's easy, man. The rest of it just falls into place. So that's awesome, Brad. I'm sorry I had to interrupt, man. I just had to say that because that was amazing.
No, I got one last thing. If I know we're big on time, I don't know how long these usually go, Devin.
Hour and a half, yeah, typically 12 to 1:30. I didn't even tell you that. I probably should have told you that. My bad.
No worries. Can we talked about morning routines. Like, I'm big on my morning routine, and this is going to help Justin as well. And everyone. So after my morning routine, I get my nutrition in, I start my prayer, my devotion, my visualization. And part of creating a neural pattern is saying something every day, right? Think about it in middle school. We said the Pledge of Allegiance every day. Every day we walked in and we said the Pledge of Allegiance, right? A Pledge of Allegiance was like it was part of a habit that we had at school. I shared this with Devin and Nick a couple weeks ago. But again, to create that new neural pattern and to create the conversation in your head, I have I call it my mantra. Some people call it an I am statement. I read this thing every single day, And I don't just read it to check it off a list. I'm going to read it the exact same way that I read it to myself. And I read it out loud, because there's something when you speak it, not just saying it, speak it. I need my readers for this one.
I need glasses too.
Oh man, so bad.
I say I need a lot more than that, but
I am beyond grateful for everything that I have in my life, and I am doing what I said I was going to do. And because I'm doing what I said I was going to do, I have a life of great abundance and joy. I am in the process of creating a legacy for the Modrich family name, and I am creating generational wealth for Brian, Natalie, Jan, and my grandchildren. Discipline will be the foundation. Discipline is the ability to keep the promise that I make to myself. Discipline to consistently say no to the bitch voice when it tries to get me to make an excuse. I will consistently execute even when I don't feel like it. I will be freakishly consistent in all areas of my life. My physical, my mental, my spiritual, and my financial will all be in line with my vision. I will have in my possession $10 million by December 18th of 2023 by giving myself, my skills, and my knowledge to people who need help. I am rich in love. I am rich in health. I am rich in happiness. And I'm grateful for all of the blessings and gifts that God has given me. And I realize I can accomplish anything with my faith in God. I will intentionally be the best father, the best husband, the best brother, and the best leader I can be by living by my core values and my freakishly consistent daily rituals. I will remind myself daily what my vision is, and my business will thrive with amazing opportunities that I will go after every day. I'm creating a culture that is built on trust, truth, integrity, work ethic, morals, faith, and loyalty. I will win. And why? Because I'm smart, I am enthusiastic, I'm loyal, I'm driven, I'm happy, I'm grateful, I'm getting better every day. And you know what? I'm a great businessman, and I will learn something new every single day. I will do whatever it takes that's moral and ethical to develop the skills, the mindset, the beliefs, and the habits to match the vision of the goal every day. Now, what happens is if you're saying this every day, I'm going to get on a neural pattern real quick. If you're saying something with every day and you're bringing that emotion, you're bringing that feeling to it. I'll give you a great example. I had potty mouth. Prior to this, if this was a Zoom I was on more than 18 months ago, every other word out of my mouth probably would have been F. F this, F that, F this, F that. I had a mouth like a trucker, right? I would curse in front of my daughter. And from this, I would, when I caught myself cursing, I'd be like, yeah, listen, bro, is that really what the best father would do? Now, because it's in my neural pattern, I'm saying this and I'm feeling it. When I'm not doing something in the physical that's correlating with what I'm saying and what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, it kind of resets me, because now I've been saying this every single day. Now the energy that's coming off is, it's about my legacy. It's about doing the right thing. It's about the discipline. It's about stomping that inner bitch voice. And this is just a product of consistent daily rituals every day, creating the new habit, which creates the new neural pattern, which rewires that old habit of what you used to do. I hope that makes sense.
All right. Wow, dude. Wow. What a
Wow, right.
Yeah. So, all right. So listen, we all got motivation, right? We all got all these tactics. Who here is going to do shit differently after this call heading into the new year? Raise your hand. All right. Now, guess what? That's not enough because you guys can talk all this stuff and not prove shit, right? So this is what I'm going to do. We all know that we have this habit tracker, right? This is how I'm going to hold you guys accountable. Right now, Jeff Harris is in the lead. Now, Brad, just to give you a reminder, we have a habit tracker on the Harvest website. Yep. 3 things every day to do, which Brad pretty much highlighted everything that we're telling you guys to do. Mind, body, and business, right? 10 minutes in the mind. What does 10 minutes in the mind look like? It could be prayer, visualization, anything positive. Reading a book, something that strengthens your mind, right? Body, right? 30 minutes of active activity, right? It could be a walk. It could be a run. This is a sustainable lifestyle. Obviously, we know 75 hard, but a lot of us can't do that throughout our whole life. It's not that sustainable for forever, right? So 30 minutes a day for active activity, movement, getting your body going. It could be a workout. It could be a run. It could be a jog. It could be a walk. It could be playing a sport. And then the last thing is business, and that's family and work. That's a Power 5 list. Every day you're going to write down combined. It could be three needle-moving, money-making activities for your business, and 2 to nail your goals for your family or something above and beyond for your family to pour into the bucket of your family. Right? So that's 3 things that it's very easy to do. It's nothing crazy. It's not as savage as 75 hard. But literally, guys, I'll be able to track if you're actually doing it. Everything that we've talked about on this call, if you're truly going to make a commitment to taking action, we'll know if you're logging that onto the website. And you guys know how it works. You get points. So if you're truly all in on this to where the community can keep you accountable, and this isn't just another call to where you get fired up, motivated, and don't execute anything 2 days later, we'll know if you're executing by you logging your habits onto that tracker. It's free. You guys use it, and we'll keep track of it. So we'll see who's really executing on what you were just taught on this call. Because this is the separator. This is what makes us different. Now I can track if you're actually doing it, right? And it's very simple. So I challenge you. I don't want to go to this leaderboard and see right now we're on Wednesday and we got Lissandro, Fulginetti, Justin Deal, Nick, Jason, and Jeff Harris are the only ones right now that have log points onto their high performance habits, right? So go in there, challenge yourself. We'll see who's doing the work. Remember, it's more than just exercise. There's other shit in there. I promise you do this for 30 days, your business will change. You guys see what it's like with 75 hard, but this isn't as savage. This isn't as overwhelming. Some of you ain't starting shit because you're afraid to start 75 hard because it's too much, right? At least start this. This is sustainable. It's effective, and it will tell you if you're doing the work. And we'll all be able to hold you accountable and see it in the community. So I challenge you, if you say you're about what you just heard on this call, we'll see it on that leaderboard. Challenge yourself. It's not about talk. It's about tracking and seeing it on a leaderboard. So that's
Devin,
my challenge. Joe, what up?
Just real quick, where can you tell everyone where they can get to that habit tracker or post it, do something?
I did 75 times already, but I'll do it for the 76th time for you, my friend. I will put it in there, but definitely, guys. But Brad, listen, man, I am so thankful. Listen, it's all about the people in this community. I'm so thankful to bring people like you to pour your passion, your experiences, and your knowledge into this. So, guys, as always, please follow Brad. I'm going to do it right now. IG, Brad. I'll post it in the Facebook group on the page. Please follow him, support his businesses. Unbelievable human being, guys. But thank you, Brad. We appreciate you, brother. And I'm sure we're going to be helping you and following you and doing all types of other good stuff to collaborate with you in the future. But if you guys really want to thank Brad, execute what he was just telling you to do. Because remember, guys, if you don't execute, this is just going through the motions. That's it. So I challenge you. We'll see you guys on the leaderboards, right? We'll see you on the leaderboard. Who's really
Let's
about
plan a pro spa day at Brad's place up in Allentown. Let's get a couple Harvest guys up to go get some treatments taken care of, man.
We'll get some
absolutely.
We got Brotox coming for 2020.
Brotox, that's what it was.
I love
Brotox. Let's hook up some Brotox.
Oh, just a bro
Thanks,
massage.
Brad.
We got this.
That's great.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
thank you, Dev. Merry Christmas,
Thanks,
guys.
Brad.
Merry Christmas,
Enjoy
everyone.
time with your
Thanks,
families.
Brad. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.